I'd always been a skeptic about online safety. That's probably why I clicked on the message from an unknown sender without a second thought. The profile picture was a blurry photo of a sunset with no distinguishing features. The message itself was simple: "I know you're alone tonight. You're not safe." I laughed it off as a prank. But as the evening wore on, the unease began to creep in. My apartment was quiet, too quiet. The message had stirred something in me, something that made me check the locks on the doors and windows twice. A few hours later, a new message popped up. This one was more detailed. "I'm watching you. I can see you through your window." My heart raced. I pulled the blinds shut and tried to dismiss the fear as paranoia. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of the curtains made me jump. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time, the message came with a photo. A picture of my living room taken from outside. The image was fuzzy, but it was unmistakably my couch, my coffee table. My hands shook as I replied, demanding to know who this was. The response came almost immediately: "You're not alone. I'm right outside." I tried to distract myself with a movie, but the tapping on the window shattered my fragile sense of security. I dared to look outside, but there was nothing, just the empty street and the dark shadows. My phone buzzed once more. "You're not looking hard enough." The tapping grew louder, more persistent. Finally, I gathered the courage to peek outside. For a fleeting moment, I saw a shadowy figure in the darkness, a face hidden in the veil of night. I slammed the blinds shut and frantically searched for a way to call for help. But my phone was dead. The tapping turned into a pounding. It was relentless, like someone was trying to break in. I felt my breath quicken as I pressed my back against the wall, trying to stay as silent as possible. The phone buzzed again, this time with a chilling message: "You're not answering. Should I come inside?" I heard a scraping sound, as if something was being dragged across the floor. I didn't know if it was my imagination or if someone was actually inside my apartment. The fear was suffocating. The message on my phone read: "I'm in. Nowhere to hide." In a panic, I grabbed my keys and bolted out the door. The hallway was dark and silent, but I could hear footsteps echoing behind me. I ran down the stairs, desperate to get away. The phone buzzed again: "Running won't save you." I reached my car and fumbled with the keys. Just as I was about to get in, I saw a shadowy figure approaching. I jumped into the car and sped off, my heart pounding. The message came through: "I'll find you." I drove aimlessly, trying to clear my head. I glanced at my phone and saw a new message: "I know where you are." I stopped the car and looked around. The streets were empty. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. Suddenly, my phone buzzed with a new message: "Look behind you." I turned slowly, and there it was, a figure standing at the edge of the street, just watching me. My blood ran cold. I floored the gas pedal, swerving through the streets. My phone was relentless, sending message after message: "You can't escape." The figure seemed to keep pace with my car, no matter how fast I drove. I found a small, dimly lit diner and decided to stop, hoping to find some safety. I took a deep breath and entered, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of the figure. The phone buzzed: "I'm closer than you think." I sat in a booth, trying to calm my racing heart. The diner's lights seemed to flicker, adding to the eerie atmosphere. I glanced at my phone. It was dead. I felt completely isolated. A new message popped up on the phone I had left in the car: "You left your phone behind." I realized I had no way to contact anyone or call for help. My only choice was to stay hidden. I saw the figure through the diner's window, moving closer. My stomach dropped as I realized I had been spotted. The phone buzzed with a simple message: "I'm coming in." The door to the diner creaked open, and I saw the figure walk in. My heart raced as I tried to blend into the shadows. The figure moved methodically, scanning the room. I had to act fast. I slipped out of the diner's back exit and ran into the nearby alley. My phone was still dead, but I could hear footsteps following me. I ducked into a small storage shed behind a warehouse. The footsteps grew louder, then stopped. I held my breath, trying to remain as silent as possible. My phone buzzed again: "I know you're in there." I could hear the figure moving around the shed, checking every corner. I had no choice but to make a run for it. I pushed open the shed door and sprinted into the night, my breath coming in ragged gasps. As I ran, I glanced over my shoulder and saw the figure following me. I ducked into a nearby park, trying to lose them among the trees. The phone buzzed: "You're not alone." I hid behind a large tree, trying to catch my breath. The park was eerily quiet, the only sounds were my own ragged breathing and the occasional rustle of leaves. Suddenly the phone buzzed with a new message: "You're in a trap. There's no way out." I looked around frantically, realizing that the figure had set up a perimeter around the park. The figure appeared from behind a tree, their face obscured by darkness. They moved closer and I had no choice but to run again. The figure chased me through the park, their footsteps pounding against the ground. I could hear their breathing growing closer. I reached a deserted road and tried to flag down a car, but no one stopped. The figure was closing in and my options were running out. I made a split-second decision and ducked into an abandoned building nearby. I hoped that the darkness would provide some cover. The inside of the building was decrepit and filled with old furniture and debris. I found a dark corner and tried to remain as still as possible. I heard the figure enter the building, their footsteps echoing through the empty rooms. They seemed to be methodically searching every corner. My phone buzzed again. "I know you're in there. You can't hide forever." I felt a surge of panic. The figure was getting closer, their presence almost palpable. I waited until the footsteps grew faint, then I quietly slipped out of my hiding spot and made my way to a side exit. Outside, the night air was cold and the streets were still deserted. I had to find a place to hide or someone to help me. My phone buzzed with a new message: "You can run but you can't hide." I felt the fear tightening around me as I realized the figure was still tracking me. I found a nearby house with its lights on and knocked frantically on the door. A man answered, looking confused. I begged him to let me in and he hesitated before allowing me inside. Inside, I tried to explain what was happening but the man seemed skeptical. I couldn't blame him. The fear made it hard to think clearly. My phone buzzed once more. "You're in the wrong house. I know where you are." I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized the figure had found me again. I glanced out the window and saw the figure standing across the street watching the house. I knew I had to leave before it was too late. I thanked the man and quietly left the house, heading back into the night. The figure was still following me, their presence a constant, haunting threat. I roamed through the streets, trying to think of a safe place to go. The figure was relentless, their presence a constant reminder that I was never truly alone. I decided to hide under an overpass. The darkness was thicker here, and the traffic noise offered some cover. I crouched behind a concrete pillar, hoping the figure would pass me by. Part 43, the text. My phone, now partially charged, buzzed with a message: "You're hiding in the wrong place. I can see you." I looked around in panic, but the figure was nowhere to be seen. My breathing grew shallow as I realized I might be cornered. The figure emerged from the shadows, stepping into the dim light of the overpass. I was trapped. There was no way out without being seen. In a desperate bid for escape, I bolted from my hiding spot and ran down the road, my footsteps echoing in the empty streets. The figure chased after me, their footsteps growing louder. I ducked into an old warehouse that was partially open. Inside, I found a large stack of crates and hid behind them, hoping the darkness would keep me concealed. The figure entered the warehouse, their footsteps resonating through the cavernous space. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't find me. Suddenly, I heard the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. I peeked out and saw the figure moving crates, searching for me. The figure stopped just inches from my hiding spot. I could hear their breathing, heavy and labored. I stayed as still as possible, hoping they wouldn't discover me. My phone buzzed with a new message: "You can't hide forever. I'm getting closer." The fear intensified as I realized the figure was still on my trail. I decided to make a break for it. I ran through the warehouse, knocking over crates in my wake. The figure pursued me, their footsteps echoing behind. I burst out of the warehouse and into a narrow alley. The figure was still in pursuit, their shadowy form growing nearer. At the end of the alley, I found a high fence. I climbed it quickly, desperate to escape. As I reached the top, I glanced back and saw the figure trying to scale it as well. I dropped to the other side and landed in a dark, wooded area. The figure was still climbing over the fence. I had a small head start but knew it wouldn't last long. I ran through the woods, the trees providing some cover. The figure was close behind, their footsteps crunching through the underbrush. I spotted a small cabin in the distance and made my way towards it. It looked abandoned, but it was better than being out in the open. Inside the cabin, I found an old padlock and quickly secured the door. The silence was eerie and I could hear the figure trying to break in. I hid in the corner of the cabin, my heart pounding. The figure's attempts to break the door grew more desperate. I knew I had to find a way out before they succeeded. My phone buzzed. "You're safe for now, but I'll be back. This isn't over." The message sent a shiver down my spine. The figure was persistent and would not give up easily. I searched the cabin for anything useful. There was an old phone, but it was dead. I found a flashlight and a map which I used to plan my escape route. As the figure's attempts to break in slowed, I decided to make a move. I waited for a moment of quiet and then slipped out the back door. I made my way through the woods following the map. The figure was still searching for me, but I hoped I could find a safer location. I eventually reached a small road. I saw a car approaching and waved frantically. The car slowed, but the driver seemed hesitant. The driver eventually stopped and let me in. I explained the situation, and the driver offered to take me to a nearby police station. At the police station, I reported everything that had happened. The officers promised to send patrols and investigate, but their reassurances did little to calm my nerves. Despite the police presence, I received another message. "You think you're safe? I'm still watching." The fear returned with a vengeance. I couldn't shake the feeling that the figure was still out there. The police conducted a thorough search of the area, but they found no trace of the figure. The cabin was empty and there were no new leads. Days passed and the messages continued. "You can't escape me. I know where you live." My anxiety grew with each message. The figure's persistence was unnerving. I decided to move to a new location, hoping it would provide some relief. I found a new apartment and tried to start fresh. Just as I began to settle in, my phone buzzed with a final message. "You thought you could run? I'm already here." The fear was overwhelming. I glanced around the new apartment, knowing that the nightmare was far from over. The figure was still out there and I had no idea when or where they would strike next. I tried to convince myself that moving would bring peace, but the constant messages and the fear had become a part of my daily life. I checked the locks obsessively and avoided going out after dark. One night, I heard a scratching sound coming from the walls. My heart raced as I wondered if the figure had somehow found me. I inspected the apartment but found nothing. The next day, I discovered a note slipped under my door. "You can't hide forever. I know everything about you." Panic surged through me. How could they have found me so quickly? I installed security cameras around the apartment, hoping they would provide some reassurance. Each day, I checked the footage obsessively, searching for any sign of the figure. Despite the cameras, the messages continued. "Your cameras won't protect you. I'm always one step ahead." One evening, the cameras picked up strange movements near my apartment. I watched in horror as the figure lurked around, clearly familiar with the layout. The shadow of the figure was visible in the footage. They seemed to be testing the security, trying to find a weak spot. My anxiety reached new heights. I decided to leave the apartment and stay with a friend for a while. I hoped that a change of scenery would give me some respite from the figure's relentless pursuit. Just as I was about to leave, my phone buzzed with a new message. "I know you're leaving. I'll find you wherever you go." I arrived at my friend's house, which was situated in a more secluded area. I felt somewhat safer, but the fear of the figure still loomed over me. A few days into my stay, I noticed that some of my belongings had been tampered with. It was clear that someone had been in the house, despite my friend's assurances of security. My friend grew increasingly worried about my safety. We decided to go to the police together, hoping that their presence might deter the figure. The police conducted another search but found no new evidence. They assured us they were doing everything they could, but their lack of progress was disheartening. The next message was even more chilling. "I'm closer than ever. I know every move you make." One night I heard a noise downstairs. I rushed to check and found signs of a break-in. The figure had been there, leaving behind a chilling message written on the wall. "I'm always watching." In a state of panic, I decided to hide in the basement. It was dark and cold, but it felt like my only option. I stayed hidden, listening for any signs of the figure. After a few hours of silence, I emerged from the basement to find the house empty. It seemed the figure had left, but the fear remained. I contacted a private security firm, hoping they could provide better protection. They installed advanced security systems and offered to patrol the area. Even with the new security measures, the messages kept coming. "Your security won't save you. I'm always one step ahead." The security team monitored the area, but they found no signs of the figure. They reassured me that they were doing everything possible, but the messages continued to escalate. One day I received a video clip on my phone. It showed the interior of the house, taken from one of the security cameras. The figure was getting bolder even with the increased security. I was at my wit's end. No matter what precautions I took, the figure always seemed to be one step ahead. My fear and frustration were overwhelming. The next message was particularly disturbing. "You're not safe anywhere. I've already found your new location." The private security firm increased their patrols and reviewed all footage, but they found nothing unusual. The figure had become adept at evading detection. Feeling increasingly isolated, I decided to retreat to a remote cabin in the woods, hoping that the seclusion would offer some protection. The cabin was far from civilization, and the surrounding woods provided some cover. I thought I might finally be safe, but the fear of the figure was ever present. As soon as I arrived at the cabin, my phone buzzed. "I know exactly where you are. This place won't protect you." I set up security cameras around the cabin and kept a close watch on the footage. The figure was relentless, continuously testing the perimeter. One night, I saw the figure approaching the cabin on the cameras. I tried to prepare myself, knowing that this might be the moment of confrontation. The figure reached the cabin and began to break in. I confronted them, armed with a makeshift weapon. The encounter was intense and terrifying, with the figure revealing a chilling motive behind their actions. I managed to escape and contact the authorities. This time, with the help of the security team, they finally apprehended the figure. The terror had ended, but the haunting memories would linger forever. The authorities arrested the figure and began investigating their background. It turned out that they had been stalking and terrorizing victims for years, using sophisticated methods to avoid detection. The relief was palpable, but the trauma lingered. I started attending therapy sessions to help cope with the psychological scars. The trauma of being hunted and the constant fear had taken a significant toll on my mental health. Even though the immediate threat was gone, I upgraded the security in my new home to ensure I felt safe. High-tech cameras, alarm systems, and reinforced doors became a permanent part of my life. Gradually, I began to adapt to a new sense of normalcy. I ventured out more, though with a heightened sense of awareness. The fear still surfaced occasionally, especially in quiet, dark places. Despite the figure's arrest, I remained vigilant. I continued to monitor news reports and updates about similar cases, wary of the possibility of copycat criminals. Months after the ordeal, I received a disturbing message on an old and used email account. "You thought it was over? I'm still watching." I reported the new message to the authorities, who reopened the investigation. It turned out that the figure had associates or imitators who were still at large. The investigators discovered that the figure had connections to a larger network of criminals. This network had been involved in various illegal activities and had a history of targeting individuals. To ensure my safety, I worked with law enforcement to implement additional protection measures. I also hired personal security to accompany me whenever I left my home. A new threat emerged in the form of anonymous letters. These letters contained chilling details about my daily life, suggesting that someone was still keeping tabs on me. With the help of security experts, I installed even more sophisticated surveillance systems around my home. I also increased the frequency of security patrols in the area. The constant vigilance and the fear of new threats took a toll on my mental health. I began experiencing severe anxiety and sleep disturbances, often reliving the terror in my dreams. One night, I received a phone call from an unidentified number. The voice on the other end was distorted, but the message was clear: "You're never truly safe." To reduce exposure, I limited my interactions with others. I stopped attending social events and kept a low profile, hoping to avoid drawing any unwanted attention. During a routine check of my security system, I discovered that someone had tampered with the cameras. The figure, or someone mimicking their methods, was still trying to breach my security. I informed my neighbors and local community about the ongoing threats. I organized neighborhood watch programs and shared information about the figure's tactics to keep everyone informed. A breakthrough came when a tipster provided information about a suspicious person who had been seen in the area. The authorities followed up, hoping it might lead to new evidence. The lead turned out to be a false alarm. The person in question was cleared of any involvement. The frustration of not making progress weighed heavily on me. Despite the setbacks, the fear remained. I was constantly on edge, worrying about potential breaches in security and the possibility of new threats. The story of the figure and my ordeal gained media attention. While some found solace in the fact that the story was being covered, it also led to unwanted public scrutiny and additional stress. One day, I unexpectedly ran into someone who claimed to know details about the figure's network. They offered information in exchange for anonymity. I decided to meet with the informant. They provided valuable insights into the figure's network and connections, which helped the authorities in their investigation. The authorities launched a more focused investigation based on the informant's information. They identified several key individuals linked to the figure's activities. Law enforcement agencies coordinated efforts to dismantle the criminal network. Raids were conducted and several individuals were arrested, including some with direct connections to the figure. Even with the progress in the investigation, doubts and fears lingered. The trauma and the threat of possible retaliation from the network left me feeling uneasy. The trial of the figure and their associates began. The courtroom proceedings were emotionally taxing, as I had to relive the harrowing experiences in front of an audience. Throughout the trial, I relied heavily on my support system, including friends, family, and mental health professionals. Their support was crucial in helping me cope with the stress. The figure and several associates were convicted on multiple charges. The verdict brought a sense of justice, but the emotional scars remained. I gradually began to rebuild my life. I focused on healing and finding ways to move forward, though the fear and anxiety would occasionally resurface. To aid in my recovery, I relocated to a new area far from the scenes of the terror. The change of environment helped me feel a sense of fresh start. I continued therapy to address the lingering effects of the trauma. Sessions helped me process the events and develop strategies for managing anxiety. I became involved in community safety initiatives, sharing my experience to raise awareness about personal security and the dangers of online stalking. Months after the trial, I received an unexpected letter from someone claiming to have information about the figure's past. The letter was cryptic and unsettling. I provided the letter to the authorities. They investigated the claims, but it led to no new significant findings. The letter's true intent remained unclear. Despite the closure of the case, I maintained heightened security measures and continued to be cautious about my online presence and personal safety. A minor security breach occurred when someone hacked into my email account. Although it wasn't directly linked to the figure, it reignited my fears. I leaned on my support network more than ever. They provided comfort and reassurance, helping me navigate the ongoing challenges. I took time to reflect on the ordeal and the impact it had on my life. Writing about my experiences became a therapeutic outlet for processing the trauma. I started an awareness campaign about online safety and the dangers of stalking. Sharing my story helped others understand the importance of protecting their personal information. One day, I received a final ominous message: "You may have escaped, but I'm always watching." The message was a stark reminder that while the immediate danger had passed, the psychological impact of the ordeal would always be a part of my life. Over time, I gained a new perspective on life. The experience taught me resilience and the importance of staying vigilant, but it also underscored the need for self-care and mental health support. Healing was a gradual process. I found solace in connecting with others who had faced similar experiences and in helping to educate others about safety and awareness. I grew from the experience, learning to manage fear and anxiety more effectively. The ordeal made me more empathetic and aware of the struggles faced by others. I continued to advocate for victims of stalking and cybercrime, using my experience to push for stronger laws and better resources for those affected. Looking back, I acknowledged the depth of the ordeal and the strength it took to overcome it. The experience had been a harrowing chapter, but it had also shaped me in profound ways. Even as time passed, I remained vigilant. The fear of the unknown and the potential for new threats kept me cautious, but I had learned to manage my anxiety better. My involvement in community safety continued to grow. I worked with local organizations to promote safety awareness and support for victims of similar crimes. Despite the lingering impact of the trauma, I achieved personal milestones. I pursued new goals, embraced opportunities, and found joy in small victories. Years later, I encountered someone from my past who had been indirectly involved in the investigation. They shared insights about the figure's network that added new layers to my understanding of the events. The final piece of closure came when I received a letter from the authorities informing me that the remaining associates of the figure had been apprehended. The sense of finality brought a long-awaited relief. With the case resolved and the immediate threats neutralized, I began to rebuild my life with a renewed sense of hope. The past would always be a part of me, but I looked forward to a future where I could live without constant fear. I continued to use my experience to educate others about the dangers of online stalking and personal security. Awareness and prevention remained central to my efforts. I had grown significantly from the experience. The trauma had tested my resilience, but it had also strengthened my resolve to advocate for others and support those in need. I often reflected on the journey, from the initial terror to the eventual recovery. It was a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the importance of support and perseverance. Even as I moved forward, I maintained an ongoing vigilance. It became second nature to stay aware of my surroundings and safeguard my personal information. My support network remained a crucial part of my life. The connections I had made through my ordeal provided strength and encouragement as I continued to navigate the aftermath. New challenges arose, but they were met with the strength and resilience I had developed through my experiences. Each obstacle became an opportunity for growth. My advocacy work expanded, reaching more people and communities. I collaborated with various organizations to promote safety and support for victims of cybercrime and stalking. The emotional impact of the experience was profound, but I learned to manage it through therapy, support, and self-care. The journey was ongoing and healing was a continuous process. My story became a part of a larger legacy of awareness and advocacy. By sharing my experiences, I contributed to a greater understanding of the challenges faced by victims of stalking and cybercrime. As I continued my advocacy work, I saw the positive impact of my efforts. More people became aware of the dangers of online stalking, and support systems for victims improved. I found a sense of personal peace as I came to terms with the past. The fear had diminished, replaced by a sense of empowerment and the knowledge that I had overcome significant challenges. Reflecting on my growth, I saw how the experience had transformed me. I had faced immense fear, but I had also discovered strength and resilience I didn't know I possessed. The impact on the community was significant. My efforts to raise awareness and promote safety had led to positive changes and greater support for those affected by similar crimes. With the past behind me, I embraced a new chapter in my life. I focused on building a future that honored the strength I had gained and the lessons I had learned. The healing journey was ongoing, but I approached it with a sense of hope and determination. Each day was an opportunity to grow and move forward from the trauma. I felt empowered by the knowledge that I had faced my fears and emerged stronger. The experience had taught me to value my resilience and the support of those around me. I continued to provide support to others who had faced similar challenges. By sharing my story and offering guidance, I contributed to a supportive community for victims of stalking and cybercrime. Looking to the future, I remained optimistic. The experience had shaped me, but it had also prepared me to face new challenges with confidence and strength. The lasting impact of the experience was a testament to the power of resilience and the importance of support. I carried the lessons learned with me, using them to navigate life's challenges. The legacy of awareness and advocacy continued to grow. My efforts to promote safety and support had left a lasting mark on the community, contributing to a safer environment for everyone. Reflecting on my resilience, I saw how the experience had forged a path to personal growth and empowerment. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been transformative. The journey of healing and advocacy continued. Each step forward was a reminder of the strength and resilience that had emerged from the darkness of the past. As I looked back on the entire experience, I felt a profound sense of accomplishment and peace. The challenges had been immense, but they had also led to growth and a renewed sense of purpose. With the past behind me, I embraced new beginnings with a sense of hope and determination. The future was bright, and I was ready to face it with the strength and resilience I had gained. The legacy of my experience continued to inspire others. By sharing my story and advocating for safety, I contributed to a greater understanding of the challenges faced by victims of stalking and cybercrime. The final chapter of my story was one of hope and resilience. I had faced immense challenges, but I had also emerged stronger and more empowered. The ongoing impact of my efforts was a testament to the power of advocacy and support. The changes I had helped bring about continued to make a difference in the lives of others. As I reflected on my journey of healing, I saw the progress I had made and the strength I had gained. The experience had been a crucible of growth and transformation. With a sense of closure and optimism, I looked toward new horizons.